Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the podcast. And today we are bringing one of the most passionate people when it comes to helping veterinarians and their real estate odyssey. In fact, our guest is on originally from Boston, now in Los Angeles area. And his goal is to help us spend more time doing what we love most and less time worrying about cash to pay the bills. By investing in our futures, we can set ourselves up for long-term success. And he is a veterinarian by trade. He's a CEO and co-founder of Lark Capital Group. We're going to be talking about all things to build passive income while improving the life and welfare of others. Please welcome to the show with me, Jason Balara. Jason, how are we doing?
I'm good, Brett. Thanks for having me on today. I'm excited to talk.
Absolutely. And people want to get in touch with Jason, go to larkcapital.com. By the way, my name is Brett Swartz, for those who are wondering. I'll be your host today. So Jason, for our listeners to get to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, sure. As you mentioned, I am a veterinarian. I'm actually a veterinary surgeon, so no questions about anything outside of surgery. I don't I don't do that anymore. But I was that kid that always wanted to be a veterinarian. But also, by the way, I was, we grew up humble. And I saw real estate at a young age, ownership as a way kind of out of that situation. And so, really, the two careers went pretty parallel as I moved through, you know, uh, high school, college, vet school, training to be a surgeon. I was also doing real estate on kind of a small scale at the residential level. And then it was in 2020 that I sort of decided I wanted to take real estate investing, be more serious about it, be more intentional about it. And that's when we founded Lark Capital as a way to scale and sort of bring in other investors through syndication. And then in 2023, Q3 of 2023, we launched our fund that's very, very veterinary centric. And so it became a way for me to sort of to bring those two worlds together. And that fund is what we've been focused on almost exclusively at this point.
Awesome. Love that, Jason. Before we dive into the topic at hand, which is the Veterinarian's Real Estate Odyssey, which is kind of a cool name, and we're not quite sure what we're going to talk about here, but it's going to be really great. I do want to take one other step back. I believe you've all been given certain gifts in this life, and these gifts have been given to us to be a blessing and help to others. What would you say is Jason's, superpower, strength, gift that you've been given, and how does it help how you help and bless people today?
I think my ability to relate to people on various levels. So maybe this comes from being a veterinarian and surgeon, but you have to explain complex procedures to clients about their pet. And in the real estate world, in syndication, we have to explain complex syndication structures and fund structures to investors. And so I think just being able to talk to people at whatever level that they are at and explain things hopefully in a way that's understandable and relatable, because I do think that these opportunities are really, really important for sort of improving people's futures.
Love that. Yeah, that makes sense. Complex to simple, being understandable, relatable, and be able to connect on various levels of communication in other ways too. Cool. I love that. So let's dive right into the topic at hand, which is the Veterinarian's Real Estate Odyssey. So Jason, what's the I guess the big secret for you moving from, let's say, full-time vet surgeon, right, to having more passive wealth, having more freedom with what's kind of your journey on this game of wealth and life?
Yeah, it's been very much that journey. Veterinarians there's no time for business classes or finance classes when you're training to become a doctor. I'm sure this is fairly common in other medical professions. But for me, for a long time, there wasn't any plan. It was just kind of like, oh, I love what I do. I'm just gonna keep working. And as I got older and then I had kids, I realized, hey, maybe that's not a great plan for forever. What can I do to sort of make myself make work optional, I guess is really the idea. And so that's thankfully came across syndication, because up to that point I had been very much a sort of hands-on DIY type of real estate investor with flips and things like that. And doing that, you can make money doing that as a real estate investor, but again, it's just adding another job to the mix. And I wanted to figure out a way to make it where I could be, as they say, making money while I sleep. And so it was through syndication and passive investments that I realized that that was a possibility. And I have invested passively with other syndicators, and also in all of our own deals, I invest passively. And so the goal there is just, kind of grow that passive income over time to the point where, as much as I love doing surgery, if I, for example, want to take the summer off because my kids are off school, I can do that. And I can do real estate from wherever. So I'm not tied down to the operating room like I would be with surgery. So it was really for me about creating optionality. And as I've gone through this and spoken with a lot of veterinarians, I think a lot of them are kind of finding the same struggle that I was a few years back when I started Lark Capital, and just finding themselves stuck. And so a big part of this mission is really just to educate and let people know that, um, you know, I think most people know real estate is a good way to make money and grow your wealth, but a lot of people think that has to mean, oh, I'm going to buy this duplex and I'm going to manage the tenants and all of that stuff. And when reality, passive opportunities are all over the place as well, and I think they're just not as well advertised.
Got it. Yeah, I was thinking with Jason Balara, larkcapital.com. So yeah, I think it sounded like the need was making work optional, right? The need perhaps was not just being a do-it-yourself investor. The ideal outcome was making money while you slept, right? But also having those experiences and those connections deeply with your kids, like during the summers, right? Be able to do that, and still, by the way, still make some money while you're working, because it's still real estate. You can still do that from anywhere, and it's creating that optionality, and that became the driving force for you. Is that a fair summary so far, Jason?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right.
Absolutely, that's really cool. And so, talk about how you now help people to do the same, right? Talk about, kind of link yourself to, if someone is in your shoes, they're a veterinarian, they're a professional practice owner, a dentist, they've been in school and education for so long, they've got student debt, and they're working, 50-hour weeks, 60-hour weeks. They're not having a lot of time in margin with investing, or even just having work to be optional. Kind of link yourself to how you help people go from A to where they're at, to B, kind of more where we talked about you being.
Yeah. Yeah, and the first step really is education and awareness, because I do think, most of those people in that position, myself included a few years back, don't know about these opportunities. And so the first thing is just, we try to, put out as much content and do things like this. Come on, great podcasts. I have my own podcast. So we try to create sort of an educational platform. And then when someone decides that it's something that resonates with them, we set up a call, and kind of talk through how it looks. It's Syndications typically are, a fairly big investment in capital, and sometimes what we're doing is helping people establish a plan to get to the point where they can do that. They might not be ready at that point, but taking a look at, kind of their current path, and realizing, hey, is there ways where I can make some savings, or is there ways that I can actually generate more income? And all of those questions, I mean, really, the answer to all of those questions is yes. Like, anyone can do it. I did it. It's not like I'm, in any special position in terms of being able to do this. I think you just have to recognize what your goals are, and believing that you can, in fact, kind of get out of that stuck position. You mentioned student debt. The average student debt these days for medical professionals is somewhere in the 300,000s, and so it's a very sort of daunting number to come into, no matter what job you're taking out of school. And I think in a lot of instances, people, they want to go and they want to, work a bunch extra and go and pay off that student debt as quick as possible. But actually, that's the wrong route to take. What you want to do is set up your student debt, consolidate it so it's the smallest payments that you can make, and do that extra work and invest in yourself and your future, so that someday your passive income actually pays those student loans. So it's very much about education and guidance, and being, a resource for people who want to kind of explore ways to expand their portfolio. There's so many people that, they maybe have a 401k, they might have an IRA, they do sort of the traditional things, but they just don't know about the options that are out there.
Yeah, awesome, Jason. I think that was spot on, right? Education and guidance, getting clarity for where you're at, and having like a plan, like you can get there, and that belief that you can get there, and getting unstuck, right? I think unstuck of being in debt, but more so not just the general mindset, or some maybe it's the less entrepreneurial mindset, which is, oh, just pay off all your debt. Now, why don't you build a machine by investing in your education and investing into passive investments that can also pay off your debt, but also pay off your time? I think it's another way to think about it, right? Because if people pay off their debt, they haven't paid off or earned their time back, and now they're having to now go build the machine to pay off their time. Why not build the time machine, if you will, the time cash flow machine here to pay off your debt and give you time? To me, that makes sense. And any last comments on that piece there?
Yeah, I know. I think it makes sense to and to do that early in your career. I in previously trained residents, so basically people who want to become surgeons, and I always think of this example, and this could, I'm sure, go with sort of any medical professional, but even maybe lawyers, attorneys, people who are coming from a long road of education, and then they come out and they switch into this. I earned it. I need to get the new house. I need to get the new car. I need to do all these things I've put off for so long. And I get it. Like, everybody has those inclinations, but the reality is most of the time you're going from either paying to be, paying for that education, or making just enough to live by. And then you come out and you become, a veterinary specialist, a dentist, a doctor, whatever it's, whatever high income earner. And suddenly you have probably more money than you've ever seen. And if you can just take 2, 3, 5 years and sort of continue to live like you did while you were training, and invest all of that, the rest of your life is going to be so much easier. And I think that's just something that gets missed. And I know that those people, myself included, like, you sacrifice for a long time, and you want to kind of stop sacrificing. But the reality is if you just kind of raise your lifestyle to whatever your income is, you're just going to continue to sacrifice really forever, rather than setting up that machine like you referred to it, Brett.
Oh, Jason, I absolutely love it. I'm digging it. And Jason Balara, by the way, larkcapital.com, larkcapital.com. We're talking about the Veterinarian's Real Estate Odyssey, but really what we're talking about is everyone's perhaps real estate or passive investing odyssey of how are you going to get from A to B? Where do you want to be? And how are you going to get your time, your energy, your freedom back to be able to do the things you want to do, as well as make an impact and spend the time that you want to be spending? And I think about this, couple things. Yeah, definitely mindset and delayed gratification come to mind. Also, double time now for half time later. And yeah, I get it too, right? You go to college, and especially if you're a veterinarian, right? It's harder to become a veterinarian than to become a doctor, right? The level of education. By the way, I worked at IDEX for a number of years, a couple of years, and I sold chemistry and hematology machines to veterinarians, and so I've got a kind of insider peek into that world, and I'd come in, and it's like, it's a lot, right? And so people come out of college, they come out of university, they come out of veterinarian school, and they start making the big dollars, and now it's that, okay, wow, I want to get these things, but if you can just delay that for a couple of years, build up the passive income stream, build up that cash flow coming in, it can set you up for a lifetime of freedom and impact. Very cool, Jason. So what's the next step after that? I mean, so you got your education, you get your awareness, you've got some plan, you're changing your mindset. Look, I'm delaying gratification. Jason, I've got all that. Now what's the next step if I'm working with larkcapital.com?
Yeah, I mean, then you're to the sort of investment phase. And so currently what we've got is a fund. We called it the Veterinary Impact Fund. The jury's still out on whether or not I think that was a good idea to name it that, because I'm feeling like maybe it gives the impression that only veterinarians can invest in it, which isn't true. The reason it's called that is because we're donating 25% of the profits to Not One More Vet, which is an organization that is dedicated to helping the mental health struggle in the veterinary industry. We have one of, if not the highest, suicide rate, unfortunately, of all the professions. And so when you come and you get to that point where you're ready to invest, you've educated, and now typically in most syndications, there's going to be a minimum investment. I would say on average, that's usually about 50,000. That's what it is for our fund. That's what it is, honestly, for probably, I would say, at least 75% of the syndications that you'll see out there. Some have higher, some maybe have a little lower, but ultimately, you're going to invest your money, and typically you're going to start to see distributions or cash flow on that money after about 3 to 6 months. Typically, there's a little bit of a seasoning period in the beginning. When you're investing in a single deal, a single syndication, then the money's going to come in by closing date, and your investment is going to be tied to that single asset. When you're investing in a fund, it's a very similar structure. It's just that fund is going to purchase multiple assets within it. And so there's opportunity to kind of diversify within that same $50,000 versus trying to pick, hey, I think this is going to be just the right deal. So there's some benefits to a fund. There's some benefits to single one-off syndication. It just depends on what your goals are. So as you're going through that education phase, you really want to kind of figure out what your end goal is and then reverse engineer it. And so I think it's important to realize that, probably one investment in one syndication in your lifetime, it's a good idea, but it may not change your life. You're going to have to look at this. You should look at investing as really a kind of a long-term ongoing process, and get yourself into that machine again, if you will, and have it be, I'm going to put in, X amount of dollars every year or every other year or whatever, and keep rolling that forward. And in general, we expect syndications to double your capital invested every 5 to 7 years. So if you keep that train rolling over time, time's your most powerful weapon in investing. And so you just kind of keep watching that money grow and reinvesting it.
Excellent. Yeah. And again, we're speaking with Jason Balara, larkcapital.com, larkcapital.com. And so now it's time to take action. You're going to invest the money. It makes sense. We all know that, but you want to practice the compounding effect of continuing to invest that money, get it working for you. I want to shift a little bit, Jason, unless you have anything else to add for the next steps after that. But rinse, wash, repeat, right? Continue to get educated, continue to clarify your vision and your values and why you're doing what you're doing, continue to delay gratification. And then as you get that passive, I've also heard a cool thing, like the rich spend on the fun stuff from their passive cash flow. And they only spend on their needs, on what they actively earn, right? And they invest the rest, of course, in give and, make an impact there. But they don't, on the fun things, they delay it so much that they invest it and let the passive income come in. And that's when they'll buy the, fancier car, or maybe upgrade the house, or the remodel of the kitchen, or the boat, or whatever. Right. But they're really disciplined in that mindset that no. If it's fun or entertaining, or something that's like a splurge kind of thing, right, above and beyond just the basic needs, and of course there's always margin there. You don't have to be so legalistic about it, but that's kind of the more of the mindset. Let the passive pay for it, and let the day-to-day active income be for just the general needs, investing and giving. What do you think about that, Jason? That summary.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And people say it different ways, but it's like you can. There's that quote about, if you can't afford to pay for it twice, you shouldn't buy it at all, that kind of thing. And so I think so many people in the beginning, and say so many people, I did this. This is not, I'm speaking from experience. Like, you just get to that point where you're like, I work hard, I should be able to have this thing, but you're just not recognizing how much that thing might be setting you back if you were to invest that money first. And suppose you invest $100,000 and you're making cash flow on that. Now that cash flow, that pays your car payment, right? But by the way, that $100,000 is continuing to grow, where whatever car you've gotten is going down in value. So it's kind of recognizing the difference of where that money goes.
Yeah, so well said. I want to shift now into capital gains tax exit planning for veterinarians. And I'm curious, and maybe you exited, maybe you owned part of the practice, maybe you just worked in it, but what would you say is the biggest frustration when it comes to veterinarians that built up the practice, right? They got that 3 to 5 full-time doctors in there working, right? And they're one of them. And now it's worth 3, 5, 10, $15 million. And now they're going to get crushed with tax if they sell. 20, 30, 40, 50% of the proceeds are going to be wiped out depending on what state they live in and how they structured it. What would you say is the biggest frustration you've seen over the years? And what kind of impact would it have if they could sell that, diversify the wealth, right? And also redeploy it, to make compounding interest, all tax deferred? What would that mean for them?
Yeah, I think that would be huge to have that. I think a lot of what's missing there again is that education piece and not knowing what to do with it. I think unfortunately, I think a lot of people sell and don't necessarily know what to do with whatever that, large chunk of money they just gained in order to set themselves up for the future. I think some of them think, okay, I sold it for whatever it was, $10 million. I've got to live on this $10 million forever, rather than being proactive and setting up in a situation where you can, defer taxes, invest, do all of the things that, the really wealthy would do with that money when they sell, when they do an exit.
Absolutely. And by the way, if you want to learn more about that, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. We also wrote a book on it called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. It does start with education. It starts with a clear vision for how and where you want to invest the wealth, and looking at the solutions for how you can sell that veterinarian practice, that dental practice, that optometrist practice, really any business of any kind, and defer that capital gains taxes, whether you're an S Corp, C Corp, LLC. Also works for cryptocurrency, works for real estate, works for stock, but you need to set it up prior to the close of escrow. And so you want to make sure you go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com for a no-cost consultation to show you how we could work with you to help you out. Thank you so much for listening to that little quick commercial. That being said, Mr. Jason Balara, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am ready.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one gold nugget make sure to tell yourself to do?
Start investing then. Just start sooner. I was 2000. That was the year 2000. I should have been far more aggressive in investing when I was younger, because then work would already be optional.
Excellent. Next question is this: number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Who Not How. Big DIY guy, as I mentioned. That was a huge mindset shift for me reading that book.
Excellent. Next question is this: favorite leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
Oh boy. I would say, I'm a huge sports fan. Tom Brady, I think he actually stole this quote from someone else, but this is where I know it from. I didn't come this far to only come this far.
Love it. Love it. I just watched the top 6 picks that were picked for Tom Brady over Tom Brady. And every time I watch it, I'm more and more inspired. Huge Tom Brady fan. Love that. Next question. Number one way that you use Chat GPT?
We use it for content. Sometimes it's one of those things that I think we're still figuring out how it best fits. But I do like it to use it for content. In large part, I'm kind of a slow typer, and so you can sort of ask it the question or give it the prompt and have it come out with either the content or a plan, and then you just have to make sure that you're proofing it and it's everything it's saying is accurate.
Fantastic. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
No, I guess I'm curious about what's going to happen in the real estate market over the next 12 months. That's going to be interesting to see. I think everybody in the space is really kind of watching and waiting.
I agree. Interest rates, valuations, deal transactions, all of the above. Last question. After all your success helping all the people you've helped, what's the number one way that you stay best centered in your values and also stay encouraged to charge forward to reach even higher heights?
Oh, my family, my kids, just setting the right example for them, making sure that that I'm the dad that they deserve.
Absolutely love it. Jason Balara, it's been more than a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, sharing your wisdom and your inspiration with us on ways to really build not just the veterinarian's real estate Odyssey, but the passive investors real estate Odyssey for freedom and flexibility with their wealth and their time. I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts you've been given about the ability to relate with people on various levels. making complex simple and understandable, so people can take action and have belief that they can also have passive income, get a chance to not have to be stuck in the day-to-day. Really cool. Love everything you're doing. For our listeners who want to get in touch with you, can you remind them one last time what's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, they can go to our website, which is larkcapital.com, or they can email me directly, jason@larkcapital.com, and I'm on social media as well. So it's pretty easy to find me. There's no other Jason Balara.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Also, thank you to everyone who's listening to this podcast today. We're actually streaming on 3 different podcasts. And so depending on what you're listening to, it could be the Capital Gains Tax Resistance podcast, the Build It to Billions podcast. It could also be on Expert CRE Secrets podcast. I know that's a lot, but we're trying to bring you amazing content from multiple different places so that you can consume that on Apple, on Spotify, on the YouTube channels. If you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe to those as well. Share this with someone who could be inspiration. Share this with a veterinarian who you might know who would love to know this information, so that if they sell, they can defer capital gains taxes. They can get that freedom and flexibility with the wealth. They can connect with Jason right now and start to invest in their wealth plan with that passive income. Check out the new book too, by the way. Well, it's not so new, but might be new to you. It's called Building a Capital Gains Tax Exit Plan. We hit #1 bestseller on Amazon. That's a cool book to unlock your ideal wealth plan for yourself or for your clients when exiting highly appreciated assets. We appreciate everyone listening.